Alrighty, good morning, everyone. I am Ashley Cawthorn. I'm the marketing director at Burke, Greenleaf, Rashidi, and I also serve as the marketing chair for the Boulder Young Professionals. We'd like to thank you for being here and joining us for our BYP Lunch and Learn today. A timely subject as we talk about job hunting during uncertain times. We'll get started with the program shortly. We just have a few announcements to make before that. Some COVID business resources that the Boulder Chamber has been working on in collaboration with the city, county, and other entities are available to provide information and resources to your business. Please find these resources at boulderchamber.com/COVID-19. They also have weekly education sessions with the Boulder County Public Health to provide info to your business on reopening during the Safer at Home initiative. Finally, we have the Boulder Area Business Response Group on Facebook to share news about your businesses. Make sure you join the group today. I love that group. And we want to thank our sponsors just before we get to our presentation. First, we'd like to thank Terrapin Care Station. Tate Benning is here with us today. He's the VP of Marketing at Terrapin Care Station, and we'll be hearing from him in just a few. Other sponsored we'd like to thank would be our gold sponsors, Blue Federal Credit Union and Boulder Medical Center. Our bronze sponsors, Boulder Area Human Resources Association, Ide Bailey, and Vitalent, formerly Bonfils Blood Center. Thank you so much to these sponsors and for being here and for continuing to support during these crazy times. Now I'd like to introduce Tate Benning, who again is the VP of Marketing at Terrapin. Thanks so much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. We're excited to be a sponsor, and I'll keep it brief. But I assume most people know who Terrapin is, but we have 6 dispensary locations in Colorado, as well as we also have operations in Pennsylvania and are opening up in Michigan here in just a few weeks. One of the reasons I wanted to talk today was to shamelessly plug that I have 2 job openings on my team, both for a creative director and for a social media / content creator manager. So if you are indeed looking, please do reach out to me on LinkedIn, or I can share my information post this meeting. But do let me know if you're interested. I think, just to touch on the topic of today, I kind of been passing on these, I stole it from a podcast, but 3 sort of tips that we use in our marketing that I think is still applicable to what is happening right now for anyone looking for opportunities. It's obviously changed a little bit into the types of conversations and how you have conversations, but what I continue to have my team focus on is what are different or new ways we can build trust with our customers and with people. I think people's priorities have shifted. So how do we build trust? And kind of related to that is also, the fact safety is still a top concern for people. So being very cognizant of, even if you are looking for a job or talking to someone, how can you convey to them that their safety is really important? And then that kind of goes into third, which is how are you helping people? I think people right now want to know from brands how we're helping people, and would love to talk someday about everything Terrapin's doing, but I think just as an individual marketing yourself, I think it's really important to show what you're doing in these times to help people and take care of people, and pivot that this community is still really important to you. So those were kind of some of the things I just wanted to hit on today, and excited to be here and listen in on this conversation. So thank you.
Thanks, Tate. And since there's already a call for communication, if you'd like to reach out to Tate, feel free to do so. But just a reminder that as we go on through the panel discussion, there's a Q&A button on your screen. Feel free to drop your questions or comments for the panelists in there. We will review all of those questions at the end of the event just to make sure we get through all the presentations. But just a reminder, you can ask your questions at any time and we'll get to them just at the end. Now I'd like to welcome the panel. First, we're going to hear from Kendra Prospero, who's the owner and founder of Turning the Corner LLC. Next, we'll be joined by Vincent Burke, branch manager. Do I have this right? Tyler, Robert Half, and Angelina Zembruski, division director of account temps. Robert Half. Am I missing? Never mind. Sorry if I messed all of that up. It read weirdly. Anyway, Vincent and Angelina will be joining us. And finally, we'll have Tanya Ahievich, program coordinator at Workforce Boulder County or Boulder C. Things are falling off the screen. Technology is great. And then Jen Underwood, community educator at Workforce Boulder County. And with that word vomit of an introduction, Kendra, I'm going to give the floor to you. Kendra, it sounds like you're muted.
Thank you. I thought I hit that. Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Kendra Prospero, and I'm the CEO and founder of Turning the Corner. We have been in business here in the Boulder area for 9 years, specifically serving job seekers who are on a job hunt and taking that expert approach to it. And so one of the things that I realized when I was on a job hunt myself, after working for IBM for 12 years, was that there were a lot of wonderful resources in the area, but I didn't feel like there was just a true expert that could help me with my entire job search. And so I decided to try to fix it by opening up Turning the Corner back in 2011. And the way that we're an expert is that we're actually one of the only companies in the country, as far as we know still, that really works with the whole life cycle of work. We support job seekers who are on a job hunt, helping them with all of the things that we know will accelerate their search. We also do recruiting. We do HR support, and we train leaders on how to be great bosses so that they're not creating more job seekers. And so we have really the full life cycle, and we look at thousands of resumes on a monthly basis when we're doing recruiting. We coach hundreds of managers on a yearly basis, so to be that great boss. And then we also work with thousands of job seekers who are on a hunt. And so my goal today is to sort of launch us into a program for bringing all these experts together to really share our perspectives on what you need to do to help with this really difficult time of finding a job. And I want to start off with something that I think is going to be a little bit worrisome, but then also something that's really fabulous for those of you that have chosen to participate in this webinar today. I want you to think about what we're about to encounter in the next couple of months as a bit of musical chairs. Musical chairs where there are maybe 10 chairs and there are 100 people. You are now one of the ones that are going to be able to grab one of those 10 chairs, which is really going to be the equivalent of the available jobs that are out there coming in the next couple of months. And yet you are going to be competing with hundreds of people. But because of what you're going to be doing today and getting from us today, and at least starting this with us experts, I know you're going to be ahead of the curve. But there are a couple of things that are very scary that are coming down. In 2 weeks, I don't have a crystal ball, none of us do, none of us knows exactly what's going to be happening, but in 2 weeks, I do know that there will be two major milestones. One is that the PPP loans are running out for most organizations. Turning the Corner has a PPP loan, and we know that ours runs out, I think it's June 5th. I talk with lots of CEOs on a weekly basis, and almost everyone I talk to is planning additional layoffs once their PPP loan comes available. It's very scary. So I think in 2 weeks or so, we're going to see another 10 to 20 million people on the job hunt, searching and trying to get those 10, 20, 30 available jobs that are available. Again, you're ahead of the curve. And then the second thing that I think is really worrisome is that you will be 2 weeks past Memorial Day weekend. We'll have a chance to see what happens after everybody recongregates and doesn't do social distancing. What occurs, we'll wait and see, but if it is what looks like might be happening according to the epidemiologists, there's going to be a lot of people reinfected. So it's going to also make the economy fearful, and people are going to continue with additional layoffs. So it is a scary time, but you're ahead of the curve. And so what I wanted to share with you is how we look at the job market to kind of lay the field here for the rest of the presenters. It's actually a fairly simple fairly simple series of steps that I want you to consider as you are on the job hunt. So can everybody see my screen? Angelina, can you nod if you can see that? Okay, perfect. You're the only person I can see now. So it's essentially these 5 steps that I want you to think about in terms of your job search. Fundamentally, you've got to know what you're good at. Now, I've been laid off. I've been fired from jobs. So I know how hard it is when you are on a job hunt, when maybe you don't believe in yourself anymore. I've been there. I've felt those feelings, so I get it. But what I will tell you, after recruiting for, again, hundreds of roles and hiring myself as a hiring manager, I can tell immediately when I meet somebody and they just don't believe in themselves. So whatever you need to do to pick yourself back up, dust yourself off, I need you to believe in yourself. I know you have a gift to give this world. I've worked with lots and lots of people, and I have never met somebody that I didn't believe in once I got to know them. And I don't know you right now, but I do know that you have a gift to give this world. And you've got to believe in yourself because it's fundamental to a successful job hunt. But then the second piece of this is that you do need to also be pretty clear on what it is exactly you want to do next. Now, this equation's a little bit more difficult in that some of us might be now on a job hunt where we're using some transferable skills. Maybe we were in a marketing role and now we need to be going into a sales role, for example. There's very transferable skills between those two. So, but you do need to be clear on that. You need to be able to say, so I was in this marketing role and I was doing blah, 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 whatever it might be. And I loved it. I found that I was very persuasive and compelling. And I know that I can translate that into being a successful salesperson because I can be compelling and persuasive also when I'm in a face-to-face environment. So however you want to use that, or you have those transferable skills, you still need to be clear on what that move is going to be. It won't work if you're like, I can do anything. I can't, it's complicated. I'm a marketer. I'm a programmer. No, you need to be really specific. You need to get to the point where you can, where somebody else can go, oh, well, do you? Have you met? Would you like to know? Have you heard of company? Have you heard of job? Like, you'll know it's working because the conversation is continuing. And so that's how that's how clear you really need to be in terms of what you want to do next. And then the third step is you are going to need to be actively applying for jobs. And when you're actively applying for jobs, the things you're using are a couple things. You're using your resume to actively apply for a job. Again, it backs into these first 2 steps. You need to be clear on what you want to do. And I'm going to spend a couple minutes on that in a minute. Clear on what you bring to the table and what you want to do. And then your other piece of way you're going to be applying for jobs is more passively, and that's going to be actually through your LinkedIn profile. The way you show up on LinkedIn, the way you network on LinkedIn, those are various pieces that's more passive in terms of how you're going to be actively applying for jobs. And then of course your network, but now we're networking from our couch. It's a little different today, but today you are networking. You're networking with me, you're networking with Angelina. So we are here to support you and help you and take advantage of that. And you'll know that your efforts are working because you're going to hit this really key milestone, which is you are going to be getting interviews. And if you are getting interviews, even if they're informational interviews where you're being introduced into someone who might be able to hire you, and that would be through your network, or you're getting interviews because recruiters are actually reaching out to you on LinkedIn and saying, I want to talk with you. That's great. Or you're applying for a job and they're calling you up and saying, or sending you an email and saying, I want to get some time with you to talk. Those are all awesome things to let you know that your first 4 steps or your first 3 steps are working. And then of course, the final step in the job search is then you want to be getting an offer. And if you're not getting offers and it continues to happen over and over, or even better yet, if it's like, I loved that interview, I loved the company, I loved the people, that was the emotion that you had, but then you didn't get a call back, something might have been breaking down in the interview. And especially now, like we're over Zoom, right? We're over a camera. You have to show up a little differently over a camera than what you do when you are interviewing face to face. And we're going to talk about that today. So we've got a couple experts here on the panel to really share with you some information there. So with all that in mind, I want to just throw out a couple quick tips and tricks around your resume. So the very first thing to realize is that almost every time you apply for a job, when you submit your resume up, you are going to be being your first interview, your first look on your resume is what's called an applicant tracking system. It's essentially a robot. So it's a computer that is scanning your resume, pulling out the important pieces, your name, your phone number, email, all of those pieces. Those are very, very important pieces. And then it's also looking at what you've currently been doing, and it's grabbing all the keywords, it's counting them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this, and then it's basically ranking your resume against the job. I personally hate these. I own one of these. We have one. We have a software, the piece of software that does this. I hate that your first interview is a bot, but it's our reality. So your resume needs to have the appropriate keywords that are within the truth of who you are. You need to have it formatted in a way that the bot is going to know what to do with that. And then you also need to continue to network to make sure that the bot is also communicating with the bodies and the people. And so once you apply for a job, you want to still be trying to find inroads into that company to say, hey, I just applied for this position. I'd love a little heads up. I wanted to give you a heads up. If you know that person, I would love to have your endorsement for me to join the team, at least get an interview, because you don't want to have this feel like it's just gone into some big black hole, which if you don't do things right, that's going to be the case. Again, coming back around to the analogy of the musical chairs, unfortunately, there are a lot of jobs or not a lot of jobs and a lot of people. And on average, I would tell you that my personal experience with recruiting at Turning the Corner is that one job opening can have anywhere between 50 to 200 applicants. And that was during the pre-COVID time. I mean, we had one job that was an executive director job that I had 600 people apply for. This was in late 2019. So it's an incredible amount of huge volume, and you've got to be able to stand out. And then most resumes, when they are looked at by people, they're not really looked at for more than 7 seconds. So you've got to make sure your resume is capturing the audience very quickly. You can't have typos. You can't have grammatical errors. It's got to be relevant to the individual that's reading the resume, relevant to the job. And then it can't be in this sort of outdated format or is unsuitable for an ATS. And so let's just talk briefly about some of those basics. You need to have a strong billboard. That means your opening paragraph, something like a professional with experience in marketing who has built campaigns, and like you're going to lay out who you are, but in the third person. We have thousands of these examples, so please call me if you need help with this. You want to make sure it's aligned with your target roles. It's very relevant to the role that you're applying for, and then it's got the appropriate number of keywords in it. We're going to feel as we read it that's a bit redundant at times when we humans read it, but computers, they love redundancy because they get to see that the keyword count has gone up. So we're appealing to both sides. So it's a subtle balance between the keyword count for computers and the keyword count for individuals. And then you do want to have strong accomplishments on this resume, not just a job description. It's got to actually go into a little bit more about why you are amazing, and you are amazing, and what you brought to the table for that particular role. And honestly, this is the hardest pill to swallow because I love beautiful things, but it's got to be in a super simple format so that the bots know what the heck to do with it. If it's in a beautiful format, it's saved as this beautiful PDF with graphics and color and all that, the bots, they just throw up all over that. I can't tell you the number of people in my database, my applicant tracking system, that have like the last name of MBA or don't even have a last name because the bot couldn't find it on the resume because it was too beautiful for the bot. So a format will look really simple like this. I know not a lot of you can't see this, but we are here to help support you through this so that you don't feel too overwhelmed by all of it. So I'll just quickly kind of run through this, but that's basically your billboard. Then you've got your accomplishments, and then and then how you actually rewrite the accomplishments. And so again, I don't want to overwhelm you too much today, and I want to be able to get the other experts here, but just know that Turning the Corner is here for you. And we are just down the road from where you are, I promise you. And we are actually just got done recording a 4-series video series that is going through all of this in a lot more depth. And it's extremely affordable. It's only $99, or you can just buy one class for $29, and it will give you a whole bunch of this material. Plus, we've included our workbook with it, which is an 80-page workbook that goes through all of this as well. So anyway, we're trying to do our best to do our part here to help support you through this. And you can always just call and get a free 15-minute consultation with us at any point. Just email us, send me call us, link with me on LinkedIn, whatever I can do. I am here for you. And I want to see us all survive COVID-19. I want us to all look back on this time and be able to say, like, I made it through this horrible recession. So with that, I want to go ahead and turn it back over to Ashley, and she's going to introduce the next speaker. And then any questions you have, please bring them up in the chat. All right, thank you.
Ooh, sorry about that. Next, we're going to have Vince and Angelina, and I assume you guys are both speaking together on behalf of Robert Half, but I'll leave it to you guys.
Thank you, Ashley, and thank you, Kendra. First, we'd just like to introduce ourselves. So my name is Vince Burke, and I'm the branch manager for our office in Boulder, Colorado, and been with the company about 3 years, but I've been in consulting, sales, and staffing for quite some time. And then I'll let Angelina introduce herself too.
Thank you, Vince. I've also been with Robert Half for about 3 years now. I'm a staffing manager, so I work primarily with hiring managers and job seekers, the goal being to fill skills gaps to match talent with open positions in the market.
Now I'll share my screen. There we go. Can everyone see that? Okay, perfect. So to start, just wanted to tell you a little about what we'll go over. And first we'll talk about Robert Half, a little bit about what we do. And like Angelina said, we work with a lot of different companies across the state and across the country and the world, actually. And then some trends that we're seeing in the marketplace and some tips for your job search. So Robert Half is the first and largest specialized staffing firm. Our company as a whole has been around about 70 years. And outside of our Boulder office, we specialize in finance and accounting, human resources, administrative positions, healthcare, and managed business services. And in Colorado alone, we have 6 offices, and ours is right in Boulder off of Canyon Boulevard. And in the state last year, we were able to place 7,000 people on jobs in Colorado. And out of our Boulder office, we were able to get just under 500 people jobs. Those are temporary and permanent jobs. And our passion really is to help and guide companies, and especially you and other candidates, through the job search and through the hiring process, and add value however we can. So one question that we all probably have is, given the current business closures happening and the whole environment we have because of COVID-19, are companies still hiring? And the answer is yes. However, some things have slowed down substantially because of the current environment, and most companies that we've been speaking with have hiring freezes, but luckily are still hiring contractors to take care of some of the work that needs to get done immediately. And many other companies are actually seeing an increased workload and pivoting in different ways in order to survive through this. And the way companies are hiring and filling some of the gaps has definitely changed recently, and will continue to change for the foreseeable future, like Kendra was speaking to earlier. And to follow up on what Kendra was saying as well, it is extremely important for you right now, because you are ahead of the curve, to be even more active and intentional with your job search. And again, that's what we're here for you to do this presentation for, and we're here to help you overall. And what we've seen is a drastic decline in open positions and just general activity in the marketplace. But some companies have gotten busier. And some trending industries that we've seen right now are in banking, any financial institution, mortgage, and lending, food and beverage, manufacturing, renewable energy has been pretty hot, and construction, and of course, government entities and healthcare. But recently, we've also seen some other industries come back. So don't lose hope. We will all figure this out and come out stronger on the other side. But I wanted to turn it over to Angelina here for a second so she can go into some more tips on the job search.
Thank you, Vince. All right, so I am getting this over to my screen. Everybody sees it okay? Okay, so obviously hiring processes have changed a lot. Before February this year, most often the only parts of remote hiring processes were searching for the job, submitting your resume, an initial phone interview, and rarely a video interview. Today, nearly every stage of the job search has changed. So we've evolved to this virtual basis. Make sure that you do utilize your online network and let people know you're on the hunt. Since networking isn't really done in person right now, it is definitely appropriate to reach out to your professional contacts virtually. As Kendra mentioned too, it is smart to connect with your LinkedIn contacts, and you can even ask for endorsements and recommendations. Former coworkers and supervisors are really good contacts to ask for those references. And if there's a particular skill that you'd like to showcase, you could even offer to help them write it out, or at least a draft, and then ask them to tweak it as they see fit. Make sure that you are letting your network know that you're on the hunt for a new role as well. They might know of an open position or a hiring manager that they could introduce you to. And connecting and networking with current employees of those companies that you're interested in can also help offer some insight into that workplace and potentially even result in an intro. In a recent survey that Robert Half did, 47% of senior managers said an online portfolio or personal website is the best way to stand out. So we want to make sure that you are keeping your profile up to date, adding in those keywords. And then another thing that we did a survey with, more managers even, said that they are impressed with candidates who did network with their current employees. So that's just kind of something good to keep in mind. There are real numbers behind that. We want to ensure that it's easy for employers to find you and that they like what they see. So these days they say you are what you tweet. You want to make sure that the employers will like what they see when they do research on you. So at minimum, you want to make sure that your LinkedIn is updated. Include what's on your resume, but also consider including lists of accomplishments, recent activities, professional group memberships, and involvement. And just a reminder, hiring managers aren't going to stop just at your LinkedIn. So you want to make sure that your social media accounts are reflecting your best personal self. I wanted to switch gears to talk a little bit about some common misconceptions around applying for jobs. So a popular myth is that candidates don't bother applying for jobs, or that you shouldn't apply for a job unless you tick all the boxes. That definitely is not something that we see. Vince and I work with this very commonly. Part of the reason why we love our job so much is because we do get to advocate for many professionals who match a job description well, with the exception of a few of those criteria, but those are things that can be trained. You would probably be surprised by how receptive and open-minded a lot of hiring managers can be. So even if you don't have the exact education or certifications, years of experience, or the technical skills that the post is asking for, we would definitely encourage you to apply if you have most of the basics. And then another myth would be that employers look at every applicant, as Kendra went through with the applicant tracking system. I mean, not so long ago, a human did take the first pass at every application. Could have been HR assistant, hiring manager, somebody was looking at those, but that definitely has not been the case anymore. There are a lot of sophisticated software and algorithms that are the first to judge an application. Almost all of the Fortune 500 companies use that applicant tracking system with some type of AI integrated. So just make sure that you are using those keywords. Another survey that we did said that 78% of workers would apply to a job even if they didn't match the qualifications. And then 62% of workers had been offered a job when they didn't meet all of the requirements. So just another reason to entice you to go ahead and apply. Make sure that you're not boxing yourself out. So once you do apply, you've applied to this role and now you get a call to start navigating the hiring process. What happens next? Most often, employers will start with a brief phone interview to kick off the process, video interviews being next. Virtual interviews have grown immensely in popularity in recent years, but especially now. Some of the reasons are that they can speed up recruitment processes and hiring decisions. Most interviews are held virtually lately, and we do think that this is going to continue, most likely. So you want to be prepared, so we have some tips for you. So say you have a video interview via Zoom. If you haven't used Zoom before, you want to make sure you know what you're doing. So we recommend setting up a call with a family member or friend. You want to use the same video platform, test your compatibility with your computer, troubleshoot any issues, make sure that your audio is clean. You want to have good lighting and camera placement and strong Wi-Fi. When it's time for the real interview, see if you can log in 5 or 10 minutes early before the official start time. You have enough time to verify that everything's still working properly, your connection is good. I do want to mention that having some bandwidth issues during a video interview, especially for a remote position, it can give hiring managers a pause about the reliability of your home setup. So some things that you might want to do would be disconnect other Wi-Fi devices, close any unnecessary windows, just basically get as clear as you can and make sure that you're getting all you can from it. In a video interview, you do want to make sure that you're dressing normally as you would in an in-person interview. Make sure that you're maintaining good posture as if you were sitting across the chair from your interviewer. Something to definitely keep in mind is that your natural tendency is going to be to look at that interviewer in the face on your screen. Although you might feel like you're making eye contact, it will appear that you're looking down. So something that I like to do, I do a lot of virtual meetings very regularly. I like to put a Post-it note by my camera lens with like little stars, something just to kind of keep my focus there. I mean, as you know, eye contact helps to establish a stronger connection, which is something that you definitely want to do in a video interview. So after you've done your interview, some tips around following up. You definitely want to keep your number one priority being top of mind. So following up does require a delicate hand. You want to be persistent, but you don't want to pester or come across desperate. After an interview, you can send a thank you within 24 hours afterwards. Email is usually the recommended route for that. But when you do send that thank you, you also can reaffirm your interest in the role and provide an opportunity to reemphasize your qualifications. Keep in mind to be aware of your tone. It's important to be considerate and polite. Don't be demanding when you're following up. If you haven't been given a decision after another week or so, call once more and ask if you're still in the running. Make it quick and simple. Let them know that you're following up to know if you're a strong contender for the position or not. If your contact seems reluctant to talk to you or it seems like you've been ghosted, that is a sign to move on. I want to turn back to Vince to discuss some job search support and some other common misconceptions and alternative strategies to secure a job and income.
All right, thank you, Angelina. So I'll share mine again quick for you. So I want to talk about some additional resources in your job search. And we all know about Indeed, ZipRecruiter, and other job boards, which are definitely great resources for you to find work. And we were chatting about this yesterday when we were prepping for the call, but the majority of those jobs posted are real jobs. So I wouldn't shy away from your own job search on the job boards. But another excellent resource is staffing firms, staffing agencies, different recruiting firms, or individual recruiters. And the reason for that is we can advocate on your behalf and can help get you a foot in the door. And some people overlook agencies and may feel that temporary positions will hurt more than they will help. And I used to think that as well. Years ago, I was looking for work and someone told me to contact a temp agency, and I thought, no, it's a scam. I'm not going to do that. But I actually got a position that opened up a lot of doors for me and kind of changed my view. And again, using a firm or an outside recruiter is definitely an additional resource. I wouldn't have it be your only resource, but yeah, it's definitely an added benefit to your search. And I wanted to share a quick story with you that I had. So a couple years ago, I had a job opening. It was supposed to be a 1-month temp job for a manufacturing company, and I came across a woman's resume that looked perfect. And I called her, but she shared the same view that I originally did, that she didn't want to work with agencies. She wanted to do it on her own. And I really just asked her for 20 minutes of her time to just try to help her out. And during our conversation, I found out that a company she used to work for, it was like a toy store that made trains, and they actually had to close their doors because they couldn't compete with online retailers. So she hadn't looked for a job in 20 or so years or more. And the job she was going to take and start within a few days was paying about half of what she had made before, and was definitely below her experience level. So I didn't want to see her get in that situation. So I presented her over to the client we were working with, and 2 days later, she started on the temp job. And a week after that, they offered her a permanent job. So it was a perfect situation. She's actually still there today and extremely happy. But my point in that is to, in your job search, don't completely overlook temporary positions. And more times than you might think, Angelina and I, we place people on temporary roles that turn into a full-time permanent position. We're actually running some numbers, and about 40% of the jobs that we place, or the people that we place on temporary jobs, will convert to permanent employees. And while on contract roles, whether or not they go permanent, it's a great opportunity to expose you to different industries, different company sizes, different team dynamics, and ultimately it is a paycheck coming in while you search for a permanent job. And you know the old saying that it's easier to find a job when you have a job. And I want to go over a couple more misconceptions and myths around this too. So one is, if there's a job opening, you'll find it on the internet. And that is definitely not true. It may be true for some jobs in the public sector, like government, public education, where they're required to post it online, but many jobs are never even posted online. And this is because many companies don't post online because they work with companies like us, or they rely solely on an agency to fill the role for them, or they may not want their competitors to know that they're hiring. So a lot of times we work with companies where they just ask us to find a certain person and they never post it online, and we don't post the name of the company online either. Another one is that temp jobs are bad for your career. And sometimes if you maybe just do 1 week here, 1 week there, it could look bad. But overall, if we've done surveys in the past where hiring managers view long-term temporary jobs the same way that they would a permanent job. And the actual fact is that an interim position is actually a great in with a company. And temp assignments can last months and again, provide valuable experience and a chance to really grow your professional network. And many companies nowadays prefer a temp to perm strategy for hiring. And considering everything going on right now, like I was speaking to before, a lot of companies have hiring freezes, but that's because they can't really add headcount. But what they can do is they still have a budget for contractors. And if you can get a foot in the door as a contractor, you have a much better chance at that role turning into a permanent role, or if a permanent role opens up, it's easier just to move departments or move teams than it is to start from scratch months down the road when there's a lot more candidates that will be unemployed, as Kendra was speaking to earlier. And so we did another survey last year compared to one in 2017. What we found is that over 50% of employers are more open to hiring temp staff than they were 2 years ago. And with the current environment, everything going on, hiring project staff and filling temporary gaps is much more common. And especially for companies that are maybe a startup or just starting out, scaling or operating lean. And yeah, so in summary, just wanted to thank you guys for being here and letting us share some time with you. And your job search is your own, and everyone here on this call is here to help you. So another thing is that first impressions are incredibly important, and exhausting every resource available to you is essential. So I would continue to apply on Indeed, network on LinkedIn, and use Robert Half, use Turning the Corner, use Workforce Boulder County, and call every agency and recruiter you can get a hold of, just to cast your net as wide as possible. And again, these are all additional resources that are mostly free to you. And I encourage you to step out of your comfort zone and really take hold of your job search. But again, we appreciate your time and thank you so much.
Thanks, Vince. All right, finally, I want to invite Tanya and Jen to go ahead and take over. Tanya is the program coordinator at Workforce Boulder County, and Jen is the community educator, also with Workforce Boulder County. Take it away, ladies.
Thank you so much. I'm going to share my screen really quickly with you. Some of you may have never heard of Workforce, and that does not surprise me. We are state and federally funded, so we don't have dollars for advertising. That does mean that your tax dollars have already paid for your services. So one of the wonderful benefits that we have to offer is that we can walk you through some of these processes. I've been editing resumes since 1997, which hopefully makes me older than I look, but I love helping people feel like they look great on paper. The other reason, there's some stereotypes about Workforce that are unique. It could be that it's not a helpful organization, that it's not going to make an impact, that it's just a little bit of an annoyance, and I totally get why all of that comes about. Your first introduction to Workforce was probably the very last step in filing for unemployment, which is a long process where it says you must register with a Workforce Center for Connecting Colorado, or you find that it's a federally funded program and you begin to have a lot of the stereotypes about it being government-based. The average employee that works with us tends to earn $11,000 more than those who don't as an annual income boost. So that's actually a huge benefit. We also have the time and capacity to work alongside you. So if you are hearing you need to tailor your resume, you need to prep for a virtual interview and that feels terrifying, we can actually schedule meetings with you and practice all of that. So first thing, as everyone has mentioned, top-notch tailored resume. I like to think of resumes a little bit like dating profiles. If you are trying to attract an outdoorsy, active individual, you are not going to showcase all of your bookish, indoor interests. And so you've probably done a ton that's on your resume. And not all of that needs to stay on the resume. We want it to be relevant and we want it to be tailored. Just like everyone who shared so far, applicant tracking software does a phenomenal job of ruling out very qualified applicants. It was developed during the recession. So it was developed to be used when 350 applicants were applying for a job and they were looking to rule out people so that they didn't have to evaluate the largest number. One of the keyword factors that most people overlook is verbs. We want to begin each bullet point with a past tense action verb because it is power punched. It also means that every bullet point on your resume is going to be in the same tense. Psychologically, if your bullet points are written in the same tense, you can actually skim through significantly more of them before the brain gets tired. If the average reader is looking at your resume for about 7 seconds, time matters. I worked with an individual who is shifting from an accountant position to a financial analyst position. And we took the job description, we threw it into we use TagCrowd because it's free, but it basically develops a word cloud of what the job description looks like. And the words that popped that were repeated most were verbs like projected and forecasted. Things that he could do, things that he had done, but had never thought about in his previous position as an accountant. That's huge. With interviewing, just like everybody said, you want to practice. Interviews are terrifying to most people. And part of that is that they're story-based, but we don't get practice telling the stories that we're going to tell in an interview. You do not go to a social setting and say, let me tell you about a time I went above and beyond the call of duty at work. And so we can offer you that opportunity to practice telling those stories, and so that you can refine them. The brain thinks about stories differently than it formulates speech. So you want to make sure that anything that you were practicing for an interview, you were actually saying aloud, even if it's to a friend over FaceTime or in a Zoom call. Obviously, everybody says exercise your virtual network. That is definitely something we need to be doing. And then request informational interviews. I have had employers and I have had mid-level professionals and even senior level executives telling me right now they are willing to do informational interviews because a 20-minute Zoom call is something that is much easier to fit into their daily schedule. So that is, that's out there. Request them. I always conclude every informational interview with, is it okay for me to reach out to you again if I have additional questions? That additional question might be, I'm submitting my application to your company. Do you know who I should address my cover letter to? And then I also ask, is there anyone else you would connect me with? You may have pulled every string you have to get connected to that person to do an informational interview, but they are in the field and they're in the industry you're looking to get your feet into, and so they can connect you and introduce you to others. We have several virtual services, even though our offices are closed. We offer resume critiques. You can send your resume in, we'll take a look at it and do a quick overview. You can do interview prep. We have a wonderful individual who will review your LinkedIn and can provide you with some support around updating your LinkedIn and then also using it for job search. One of my favorite resources that we have about 8 to 10 money management workshops. And so during crisis, this is a great time to reevaluate your budget. You might think, why am I doing a budget if money isn't coming in? It will give you an accurate representation of what you need. It also gives you some specific fodder for negotiations, so very helpful. And then if you're finding you're in an industry that is on the decline or is not likely to return soon, we can do some career exploration services to look for additional support. To look for a slightly different direction for you. Really easy to take advantage of us. You need to create an account in Connecting Colorado. It does seem a little scammy. I apologize. It was not designed by wildly tech-savvy individuals, but it is indeed the Colorado Department of Labor's database for job seekers, so it is legit. If you filed for unemployment, you probably already have an account. And then just email us at CEinfo for community education, info@bouldercounty.org, or reach out to the call center. I'm going to pass it over to Tanya.
Hello. Thanks, Jen. So just to highlight, we have a feature program right now that we want to make everyone aware of, because it's funding that we have from the federal government that is in a grant format, meaning that folks don't have to repay it. It's a free service, and it can definitely help in that job search moving forward. Kind of picking off of what Kendra had mentioned in that road to a new job, when we're really trying to figure out what we want to do and trying to make that specific, you may find in your job exploration that, wow, this job actually feels like it might be a good fit. It's got some transferable skills, but what I'm noticing is that there's a certification that tends to be required for that type of occupation. So this is what this funding is available for. It's really to upscale your employability, to really set you up to be able to market yourself in an even better light. And it can be really for those that are entering a new career. Maybe they've been laid off, maybe they've been furloughed, and it doesn't look like you're going to be able to go back to your job. It's really for the people who most need it that we're looking to serve during this time in particular. The training itself is short-term. It's 18 months or less. All training, and we can walk you through all this when you come in, but all training does have to go through an approved vendor list, which we have that fully updated, and we can really help you in terms of figuring that out. And then all the training that we fund obviously would need to lead towards something that's marketable in our local community. So we really want to support people for longevity in their career path. So providing some additional funding to get a certification that's going to end up in an occupation that's going to be viable in our local area is the goal. And most of our training, as you probably can imagine, through any of the vendors or institutions in our area, it's going to be online. So that's one of the shifts that's happening during this particular time. And the money that we have, it's Jen mentioned, it's coming from federal dollars. So so that i.e. means paperwork. And we know this, and it's our job to make this as easy as possible for you. So if you were someone at all, it's like, this sounds like something I might want to investigate, that's all we need right now. And then we can help you once we get connected with you on the specific information that you'll need to fill out. And then we can walk you through how to do that and get it submitted appropriately. And then you're on your way. So so that's our featured program for this snapshot in time. It's pretty easy to get that initial contact with us. You can email our general email, which is workforce@bouldercounty.org, and just say, hey, I'm interested in maybe a certification or a training to upskill my abilities for employability, and we'll take it from there. We'll connect, we'll reach out to you, learn a little bit more about your unique situation and how we can support you in your individual needs on your career path. We have that general number. I just want to point out the 720-776-0822. That is a newer number in terms of it's now a call center for the entire county. That was a number that shifted, or a call center that was implemented, I think, towards the end of March. And so if you call that, just a heads up, it's going to give you a prompt for other divisions within the county. I think the first one is public health and number 2 is workforce. So you would just click on number 2 and then you'll get connected to one of our staff. Could be me, could be Jen. And then we'll just figure out what you need and take it from there. But we're here to help you, and we want to make this process as easy as possible. We know this is a really challenging time for a lot of people, and we're here to support people. And also kind of, we really model what Kendra was saying about that. It's first and foremost, we want to help people believe in themselves and really build that confidence, because we know a job search is tough. A lot of us have been through our own situations around that, so we can really share that empathy, and that's what we're here for. We're here to help people along the way and really build confidence, as well as a career plan for each individual that we're working with. And that's what we got. So so thank you for letting us come and share this. We're excited to work with you, so please come on down.
Thanks, ladies. I am looking in the Q&A and I don't see any questions. So if you do have them, please go ahead and shoot those in there. I have a personal question that I've been curious about, and I call it breaking up with unemployment. I see a lot of people who, are getting the call back specifically for F&B right now. You're really seeing that. But they're like, first of all, I'm making probably more on unemployment right now than I'm expecting to make moving forward. And, it is such an ever-changing landscape, and it's so unpredictable that, like, who knows how long I'll have a job here. So what are some risks? What are some ideas of kind of what that looks like moving forward?
So the state is going to take unemployment fraud pretty seriously, which means that you want to accurately report if you turn down the opportunity to return back to work. That does not mean that you're necessarily not going to get the funds. If you are turning down the job solely because you're making more money because of the CARES Act additional $600, that is probably a case of a time in which your unemployment will cease to be paid out. However, if your concern is that you are a primary caregiver for children and there's not an alternative for that child care, if it's health risks, if you are experiencing symptoms, if you are a primary caregiver for somebody at home who is experiencing symptoms, if your employer has asked you to come back to take on a different job with lower pay than the job that you held prior to this, those are all things that will be considered. What you'd want to do when you call to request payment or when you go on your MyUI and request payment is that you would disclose that you turned down a job during the week in which you turned it down. That will close your claim. It does not mean that you will never receive benefits again. As soon as your claim closes, the next day you can go back in, log into your MyUI, On the left-hand side, there is a reopen claim button, and you'll just need to explain why you turned that job down. I would also highly suggest that you give all of those reasons to your employer when you tell them that you're not returning to work.
And I'll add on though that this is a long game, and we want to also make sure it's clear to all of you folks and everyone who is on unemployment, it will run out, and you need to be getting a job. So don't play the short game here where you're going to get $1,200 or $3,200 and whatever it might be, and then not have a job because you have not raced everyone else to those jobs, because it will run out.
Exactly. The CARES Act additional $600 will conclude July 25th for certain. Your benefits are paid out 26 weeks at a time or until you get a job. And just like Kendra said, it is likely that you will find better jobs now than when everyone else runs out of unemployment and you're looking at that point.
I got another question in. Should I expect a lot of black holes out there? Seems like there's a lot of times when my applications just go completely unacknowledged. Is that just the new norm?
No, your resume is not telling your story. So and that's where like all of us have offered to do resume evaluations for you. So quit messing around with it, just get some help. If you're applying for jobs over and over and you feel like everything is a black hole, it's not. So, Vince, I think you said that, a lot of jobs are not, not even up there on the internet, but I would also argue that almost every job that is up there is a legitimate job, especially here in Colorado. I've definitely seen some bad trends on the coasts, but here in Colorado, like, we try to be pretty authentic and pretty real. And so the jobs that are out there are real jobs. And if you are applying for them and you're not getting interviews, which is why that's such a key milestone in the job hunt, then you need help, and we are all here to help you. So please reach out to any one of us to get that assistance, because there's something breaking down on your resume. And I'm seeing Jen and Vince nodding as well. So I know we've all seen resumes where we're like, oh, that's so bad.
To that point also, like, get creative. Like Angeline was talking about with your social network, ask for endorsements. If you apply for a job, search for that company on LinkedIn and start adding people. Maybe if you can find the hiring managers, adding other people, and just send them a little note when you add or request them. And what we've seen is we've helped coach some people where they don't even have a LinkedIn, and they've been really struggling in their job search. And the resume looks okay, but just having that presence changed everything for them. Because the first step now for a lot of recruiters is, all right, let's find them on LinkedIn. Do they know anyone I know? It's kind of like Facebook. If someone adds you as a friend, you want to see if you even know them, or if it's a complete stranger. So having that in mind too, like, get creative, add them. If you don't hear back, maybe call and say, hey, I applied. I wanted to see if you got my application. So maybe take an additional step, as well as getting some help with the resume.
Yeah, one more quick thing, to reach out to your alumni organizations, especially if they have local chapters. I graduated in Indiana. There's a local chapter here. And so I've networked through that. Often fellow alum are much more likely to reach out and support you in the job hunt too.
And I think we have time for just one more question. I know there are a lot of jobs in certain industries, but I don't have the skill sets needed for all of the industries. Is there a place I can go look, or, places that offer classes so I can acquire the skills to be a better applicant?
I think it just depends on the situation. So for that person who's got a question on that, like, reach out to one of us and we can dive in specifically to your situation. I bet you that you do have very transferable skills into a lot of different roles. It's just you're not thinking about it that way because you may not have a familiarity with the job. We can all educate you more and help guide you around, like, what those things are that the job might need, and then how you describe yourself. And so, so again, like that's a great opportunity to reach out to just have a one-on-one conversation, because I think there's very few jobs where there's not some transferable skills. And then Jen and Tanya, you guys also have the programs to help then upskill people. So that might be a perfect situation for reaching out to what Tanya was talking about with the grants for upskilling.
Yeah, exactly. Based on what the question, how the question reads, it sounds like it would be definitely give us a call and see what we can do to help connect you with the training that you're looking for. And then just to piggyback off that, a lot of obviously employers are looking for essential workplace skills, otherwise known as soft skills, and that's something that we try to weave into all of the work that we're doing here at Workforce. I'm sure Vince and others on the line do that as well. So just knowing that that's a feature we can all offer.
Wonderful. Well, to be mindful of everyone's time, let's go ahead and wrap up. If you do have questions, I believe everyone shared their contact information. Please reach out to these folks individually. Reach out to the chamber if you have any questions on getting connected. We're here to help. Thanks again to our panelists. You guys are amazing for being here and delivering so much great and critical content during these times. And then let's give another thanks to our sponsors, our presenting sponsor, Terrapin Care Station. Thanks again, Tate, for joining us. Our gold sponsors, Blue Federal Credit Union and Boulder Medical Center, and our silver sponsors, Ego Car Share and Flatirons Bank. And our bronze sponsors, Boulder Area Human Resources Association, Ide Bailey, and Vitalent. In closing, thanks for attending. Let's make sure we're staying aware of all the events and resources that the Chamber and other affiliated partners are offering. Check all of that out at boulderchamber.com. I know there's been like a really cool added element, and Tyler, you might speak to this if we have any time, but kind of the Spanish offerings that have been going on. I think they happen on Wednesdays. I've like chimed in for a couple of them. I think they're amazing. And just thanks again to the Boulder Chamber for continuing to offer their leadership during these times.